Hello, and welcome back to another flute tip of the week. The weather is finally getting colder, and so I'm finally able to wear my bigger coats that are nice and cozy. I have always been a fall and winter person rather than a spring and summer person. Today we're going to be talking about one of music's most famous tools and various ways that you can use it so that this can basically be your all-purpose practice buddy. So let's get right into it. Armed with a metronome, you have a multi-purpose tool which can exercise every aspect of your playing. A lot of people will focus on metronome work in terms of using it for articulation and obviously for maintaining beat in pieces and studies. But this is something that can actually be used for virtually every aspect of your playing. And so it means that if you only have a metronome with you along with your flute when you're traveling, or if you're in rehearsals and you need to just do some alone practice for a while, then this is the tool that will be able to work everything out. So here is a list of things that you can do with your metronome. I'll be demonstrating a few of these, although some of them are pretty self-explanatory. Tempo, finger exercises, breath capacity, articulation, and then when you have it on sound mode or tone, you can use it for tuning and also difference tones. Some of the first ones that I was talking about, like tempo and articulation, are self-explanatory and also things that I've talked about in previous videos. So I wanted to demonstrate ways that you can use the metronome for the other parts of that list. So first, let's talk about finger exercises. I have said in the past that it's important to be able to know how to improvise so that you aren't dependent on study books to be able to exercise areas of difficulty. And if you're finding that one of the things that is a result of your fingers not working quite properly will often be pushing in tempo. When you're practicing any issue, really what the best course of action is to do it much slower, multiple times in a row perfectly, and then gradually build the tempo back up. So let's say, for example, that I'm having trouble with, say, my right hand ring finger. Probably the notes that would be really good for exercising this would be switching between F sharp and G, D and E, and also doing E flat to E natural. So first, let's do it 60 to the crotchet or quarter note, and we're doing semiquavers or 16th notes. So that's feeling comfortable, so we kick it up. Let's kick it up by 10. Still comfortable? Kick it up more. And so we can use it in this way to just make sure that we have a very steady base for when we're doing our finger exercises. Now, let's talk about the breath capacity. While it seems fairly self-explanatory to be able to use your metronome to help with your breath capacity in terms of measuring how far you already are and then counting and adding even more to it, one thing that we can extend this by is by using different dynamics. We will, in general, practice doing breath capacity exercises by having a nice mezzo forte sound and just trying to hold it as long as you can. But it's important to start being able to incorporate various dynamics so that you understand that you're still able to have the same amount of control as when you're doing it just in a comfortable dynamic. So let's again put the metronome at 60. And this time I'm going to have it so that it counts 4 to a bar so that we can start counting and focusing on the number of bars we're holding it on rather than just trying to count the individual beats. So first I'm going to do this on my lowest note, which for me is the low B. And I'm going to do it pianissimo and hold for as long as I can. And the reason why I'm choosing pianissimo is because it'll take a lot of control to be able to maintain a very clear sound without having extra air wisping around. I'm going to then put that down and write down the amount of bars that I was able to hold it for, my analysis of my sound quality, and I'll put those down on a piece of paper so that when I continue to do my practice, I can compare it to the days previous. Now let's do one of the notes in the higher octave. So I am going to do an A, second octave, and I'm going to do it fortissimo. So this is going to be measuring how well I can control this when I'm using basically all of my air. And again, I'm going to be really listening for my sound quality and making sure that I'm not actually wasting any air just by having extra wind kind of floating around my face. Perhaps sitting down isn't the best time to be doing this kind of exercise, so I recommend doing it standing up. However, that already gives me a bit of a basis to really understand just how much air I'm needing to use. I also realized that that wasn't fortissimo, that was probably closer to triple forte than anything else. So not only can this breath capacity exercise be for your sound quality and length of your breath, but it can also be a really good exercise to really practice having good control over all of your dynamics so that you don't just have piano, mezzo forte, and forte. Now this is the main reason why I wanted to do this video. This is sound mode. Normally, when we practice our tuning and our overall intonation, we will use a tuner. However, we're not going to be able to use a tuner and have it on our stand while we're performing. We're not going to be able to have it while we're sitting in orchestra. And so it's really important for us to be able to practice your oral intonation so that you are able to adjust based on what you hear rather than depending on what you can see in front of you and the machine telling you you're too sharp or you're too flat. And of course, we all know that the way we understand tuning when we're listening and trying to compare our sound is based on the number of beats we hear when our note is played at the same time as an external. I have my metronome set to A is 440. So what I'll do is I'm going to start off with my note being out of tune so that you can really hear the beats, and then I'll gradually bring it in. While it's good to get really good at being very responsive and immediate in our adjustment, we also need to start focusing on tuning our intervals. This is where we bring in the difference tone. So we'll be listening for if we can tell if the difference tone is out of tune when we are playing our interval along with the A. I'm going to be playing a D on top of it, and listen, it's almost like an internal buzz that you're going to hear. Within those three notes that you're going to hear, so the note I'm playing, the note that's on the metronome, and finally the difference tone, between all of those, we're going to be able to hear the beats that tell us if something's out of tune. That's a really helpful way to be able to practice the intervals. Also, this kind of exercise is really helpful for if you are playing a piece and you just have this on as a drone. So for instance, if you're going to be playing the opening for the Mozart concerto in G major, you could have this set to a G so that you can listen for your intervals in relation to the tonic note. So again, that tip was when you're armed with a metronome, you have a multi-purpose tool which can exercise every facet of your playing. I hope you find this week's tip helpful. I know this isn't the first time in any of my videos that I've gotten excited about my metronome, but it's my favorite thing. Like, I literally have this with me every single time I travel. So until next week, flute happy and respect your metronome. It was my sister's birthday yesterday, my brother's girlfriend's birthday today. So, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Nadia and Jess.